If you have tried everything to reverse your hair loss but are still losing hair, you have to watch this episode. Hair thinning after 60 does not happen overnight. It starts when the body no longer absorbs key nutrients efficiently, even when you feel you're doing everything right. Now here is why this episode is so interesting for you. Research published in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology shows that vitamin deficiencies are strongly linked to disrupted hair growth cycles and are present in more 50% of seniors experiencing unexplained hair thinning. So in today's episode of the Senior Health Podcast, Japan's oldest doctor will explain exactly what these vitamin deficiencies are and how they influence hair growth after 60, and why correcting them can change your course of hair loss. Doctor, are you ready for this episode?
I am always ready, John. Now, speaking about hair loss through the lens of nutrition is so important because hair reflects what the body is receiving and what it is missing. When essential vitamins run low, hair is often one of the first places the body signals that imbalance.
That really changes how we think about hair loss, because most seniors are taught to believe thinning hair is inevitable, something to accept or cover up, when it is often a sign the body needs targeted support.
Exactly. After 60, hair does not simply disappear. The body's ability to absorb, activate and distribute nutrients changes, and follicles become more sensitive to those shifts. But this is not the end of the story. With the right nutritional support, the process can often be stabilized and, in some cases, gently reversed.
I cannot wait to hear what vitamins you will target today, doctor.
Well, then let us begin. I will reveal the 3 best vitamins that quietly support hair growth, follicle strength and scalp balance, and stay with me because addressing them in the right order is of major importance.
That really resonates, because seniors are often surprised that something as simple as correcting a deficiency can have such a visible effect. So before we start, please type a 1 in the comments if you are experiencing hair loss, so we know this topic matters to you.
John, the beautiful thing is that the body responds when it is finally given what it has been missing. In medicine, we look for simple foundational supports that restore balance without stress. When the body receives those calmly and consistently, it often responds faster than seniors expect.
I hear that a lot in seniors, that surprise when something basic works better than what they struggled with for years.
Yes, and that surprise comes from a misunderstanding of aging biology. After 60, the body becomes less tolerant of extremes and more responsive to steady, precise nourishment. Hair follicles do not need force. They need the right signals, at the right time, in the right amounts.
That really lands, because so many seniors tell me they tried stronger products and treatments when shedding began, thinking intensity would solve something that was actually internal. I can feel how this way of thinking changes expectations and takes pressure out of the process.
Yes, and pressure is often what interferes with recovery. When the body feels supported instead of pushed, systems begin to cooperate again. Hair health is one of the first places that cooperation becomes visible.
That feels reassuring for seniors, and it makes this feel less like a cosmetic issue and more like a health conversation. So let us start there. Which vitamin do you usually begin with when seniors ask about hair loss after 60?
I usually begin with biotin because it is the vitamin most seniors recognize first when hair loss begins. Biotin plays an important role in helping the body produce keratin, which gives hair its strength and flexibility.
I noticed nobody ever talks about biotin.
True story. And when biotin levels begin to dip, hair can lose resilience and become more fragile over time. This often shows up as increased breakage or slower regrowth rather than sudden thinning, one of the earliest signs that the hair cycle is losing stability. In a 2025 double-blind clinical trial published in Cureus, 91 adults aged 35 to 65 with hair fall and fragility were given a plant-based biotin and silica supplement daily. After 90 days, 76% showed measurable improvement in hair strength, and 70% reported reduced breakage and better regrowth, with the most pronounced results in participants over 60.
That's impressive, and I think a lot of our listeners don't realize that something as simple as nutrient depletion, not disease, might be behind the changes they're seeing in the mirror.
Exactly. While it's not a cure for hereditary hair loss, biotin seems to play a vital role in preserving the hair's structural integrity, especially in aging follicles.
That makes sense because many seniors mention breakage long before they notice hair loss. They often describe their hair as feeling weaker or less alive.
Yes, and that observation is very accurate. Biotin supports the structure of the hair strand itself, helping it withstand daily stress like brushing or washing. When the body has enough, hair tends to feel stronger and more resilient, so when it runs low, the cycle can shorten quietly.
That explains why biotin feels helpful for some seniors but confusing for others. The experience does not seem consistent from person to person, right?
Exactly, and this is exactly the reason why biotin sits at number 3 rather than at the top. For many seniors, biotin is supportive rather than transformative. It works best when it complements the rest of the body's systems instead of acting alone. The next 2 vitamins will tell an even better story.
That framing feels much more balanced and realistic. What are these next 2 vitamins?
I will reveal that soon, John. First, let's talk about how we can include more biotin in our routine, and this is where food becomes especially meaningful.
Yes, right. What food is best for seniors that are experiencing a biotin deficiency?
It's simpler than you think. Biotin is naturally present in foods like eggs, nuts, seeds, legumes, oats, and sweet potatoes. These foods provide biotin in gentle amounts that the body can absorb steadily.
That feels manageable, especially for seniors who already cook at home.
Well, the key here is regular inclusion rather than large doses. When seniors include biotin-rich foods a few times a week, the body receives a consistent signal of support. These foods also bring along other nutrients that help digestion and absorption. That combination allows biotin to work in harmony with the rest of the system. Supplements can still be useful when needed, but food lays the foundation.
That approach sounds far less overwhelming than relying on pills alone.
It does, and it honors how the aging body prefers nourishment. Steady, familiar foods are often better tolerated than concentrated supplements. This helps the hair cycle remain calm and predictable. When care feels gentle, the scalp and follicles respond more openly. But even with biotin supported, some seniors notice hair loss continues.
That is usually when they start to feel discouraged, feeling like they have tried everything. But there is more, right?
And this is an important moment in the conversation, because at that point, the issue is often not hair structure, but delivery. There is another vitamin that determines whether oxygen and nutrients can even reach the follicle.
That sounds like it moves the conversation away from the hair itself and toward how the body delivers nourishment. So what vitamin are we talking about here?
Yes, this is usually the point where the conversation deepens. Because once we move past hair structure, we begin talking about delivery and circulation. Hair follicles are living tissue, and they depend on oxygen arriving consistently. That delivery depends heavily on one vitamin that quietly supports the blood itself. When that vitamin runs low, hair often struggles even if everything else seems correct.
That framing feels different, almost more internal. So the issue is no longer at the scalp, but much deeper in the body, I guess.
Indeed, and this is where vitamin B12 enters the picture. Vitamin B12 supports the formation of healthy red blood cells, Those cells carry oxygen to every tissue, including the scalp. Without enough oxygen, hair follicles simply cannot maintain growth.
That helps explain why some seniors say their hair loss feels tied to fatigue or weakness. They often mention feeling run down at the same time.
Yes, and that connection is very real. Low vitamin B12 has been directly associated with hair loss in older adults. A clinical study published in the Journal of Cutaneous and Aesthetic Surgery found that vitamin B12 deficiency was present in approximately 35 to 45% of patients evaluated for diffuse hair loss, particularly in those over 50.
Wow, that's significant.
Yes, it is. When B12 runs low, oxygen delivery and cellular energy in the hair follicle decline. Hair follicles are especially sensitive to that slowdown because they are among the most metabolically active tissues in the body.
I can imagine. I hear that a lot in seniors who say their hair changed after a long period of low energy.
That is often the moment the body is asking for support. Vitamin B12 also plays a role in nerve health and cellular repair. When it is low, communication between systems becomes less efficient.
That makes it feel like hair loss is part of a larger signal, not an isolated problem. It also helps seniors feel less alone in what they are experiencing.
Exactly, and many seniors are more vulnerable than they realize. Vitamin B12 is found mainly in animal-based foods. As digestion changes with age, absorption often declines, even when intake seems adequate. This is especially true for seniors who eat less meat or follow vegetarian diets. The stomach produces less acid over time, which makes B12 harder to absorb. So deficiency can develop quietly and gradually, without you noticing.
That is exactly what I was going to ask you, but that explains why it often goes unnoticed for so long. So what foods should seniors eat to overcome this problem?
I often recommend foods like eggs, dairy, fish and fortified grains because they provide vitamin B12 in forms the body recognizes and can use efficiently. For many seniors, simply including these foods more regularly begins to support healthier oxygen delivery without stress. But digestion changes with age, and some seniors absorb B12 less effectively than they once did, even when their diet looks adequate.
That's something I hear often, especially from seniors who feel they are eating well already. How do you usually help them understand whether food alone is enough?
That's a thoughtful question. In many cases, food is the first and most important step, but we also look at how the body is responding. For seniors whose absorption has declined, sublingual forms can be helpful because they bypass the stomach and allow B12 to enter directly. And when testing shows a deeper deficiency, guided supplementation may be needed for a period of time. The goal is never rapid correction, but steady oxygen delivery over time, so the hair follicle and the rest of the body can recover at a pace that feels natural and sustainable.
That feels much more reassuring than a one-size-fits-all approach.
It is. When oxygen delivery improves, many seniors notice changes beyond hair. They describe clearer thinking, warmer hands, and better stamina. Hair often follows once the system feels supported again.
That sounds like a meaningful shift for overall health, not just appearance.
Yes, and yet even when circulation improves, there is still one factor that often determines whether hair follicles stay active. It is something most seniors assume they get enough of. But in reality, it is the most common deficiency I see.
That sounds important and a little concerning. Is this typically where seniors are most surprised when you introduce the next vitamin in the conversation?
Yes, this is usually where seniors are most surprised, because the vitamin we talk about next is not rare or exotic. It is something the body depends on quietly every single day, and yet it is the most common deficiency I see linked to hair loss after 60.
That already feels unexpected, especially after talking about structure and circulation. So what is it?
Vitamin D, John. Vitamin D helps hair follicles receive and respond to growth signals. When those signals weaken, follicles can slip into a resting state for longer than they should.
That sounds subtle but powerful at the same time. It also explains why hair loss can feel gradual and confusing.
Yes, and vitamin D does much more than seniors realize. It supports immune balance in the scalp. It helps regulate inflammation around the follicle. And it plays a role in keeping follicles active rather than dormant.
That helps connect hair loss to overall health in a way seniors can understand.
Exactly, and lifestyle plays a big role here. Many seniors spend less time outdoors than they once did. Skin also becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D with age.
I hear that a lot in seniors who say they rarely sit in the sun anymore. They assume that part of health is already behind them.
Yes, and this is where gentle awareness matters more than fear. Early morning or late afternoon, sunlight can still support vitamin D production. But some foods do too.
Okay, so which foods are we talking about here?
Simple food sources like fatty fish, eggs, and fortified dairy can also help. For many seniors, supplementation becomes necessary, but always thoughtfully. The goal is balance, not excess.
That feels reassuring and realistic for daily life.
Yes, and when vitamin D improves, the scalp environment often changes quietly. Seniors may notice less shedding before they notice new growth. That timing is important to understand. Hair follows health, not the other way around. And this is why vitamin D often becomes the turning point in the conversation.
That idea alone can change how seniors think about their bodies and hair growth.
When seniors see hair loss as feedback rather than failure, everything softens. They begin to listen instead of fight. And that is where real healing often starts.
It feels like this brings all three vitamins together in a meaningful way. How do you usually help seniors hold all of this without feeling overwhelmed?
I help seniors by reminding them that the body prefers clarity over urgency. We look at one thing at a time, we test when needed, and we give the body space to respond. When nourishment is steady and balanced, hair often follows without being forced.
That feels comforting, and it leaves seniors with a sense of direction rather than pressure.
Yes, and that sense of calm is part of healing. When seniors trust the process instead of rushing it, the body often finds its way back to balance. That is where lasting change begins.
That's a good note to end on, Doctor. Now, if you are still listening and feel like you have tried everything to reverse your hair loss, we hope this gave you another opportunity. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. Oh, and watch this next video right now.
Yes, please.
We've picked this one especially for you.